Well, it's
Oh, yes.
hideous beyond
That makes you happy? Yes.
The real trying to push the
That's great. A lot of reading, but that's
So
good.
they were just
Yeah.
using the Balsera prices to justify
behind the
why the
school
land
there.
price should be so high.
Absolutely an eyesore.
Something I wanted to ask,
I think our
I-
is one.
Whenever
Yeah, anyway.
informally
Construction buttons.
contest
They're
level,
tipped
well,
down
that's
to
such a
this
thing.
throwaway.
Spanish should be in there for free.
For town fashion,
Really,
Oh, you got it set 10 guys up.
documentation or
much
stats,
Yeah.
a particular
I think they've
population,
got
if you
enough
have a
sense.
certain
They've
number
got
of
enough
people,
sense.
say,
One group
under
of
the
buildings.
$1,000 bracket,
Income.
yeah,
It's
in your
one
household status, that you need a certain amount of housing, you need a certain amount of rental housing.
I mean,
Like Stevens Hill.
I think it's just see Mark Sagan's page has changed a little bit since
There's
then.
a new measure of
Mark?
income.
There must be a story on
Like we have income
why
protection
law
in the
practice is going
census,
downhill.
but I don't think that there's a, I don't think I have the answer, but
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
all.
think that
About the
there's
only law
any
practice that is.
correlation, because somebody
It's
earning
one of those
any,
interesting things
in
that
theory, in a diverse marketplace, and somebody earning any amount of money should be able to afford to buy or rent, and that should be their choice.
Except if you look at what our current housing market is.
Right. So that's, okay.
Yes.
All right, well,
Anyways,
okay.
Yeah.
I am gonna call the meeting to order. Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Anyway.
So bear with me as I learn the new roles and formalities that I have to do here as chair. So I've called the meeting to order. First item is to approve the agenda. Does anybody take a moment, if you haven't looked through it, it's fairly simple today, and let me know if there's any changes. Otherwise, if somebody can move.
I would do that.
Move, need a seconder? Yeah, and all in favor? Do I vote as well? 'Cause
Yes.
Do I? Yeah, perfect, okay.
You
There
just
we
like
go.
the mayor, you get one vote like anyone else.
All right, love it. Okay, so next, adoption of the minutes. So they're attached here. If anybody hasn't looked them over, feel free to look them over quickly now. Again, it was, not
I wasn't there and Emma was there.
you guys look so much alike.
Yeah. Doppelganger. What was that?
You look so much alike, he and Emma.
Oh, it's noted that Daniel was there, but Emma was in his place.
I took the list off the website and I forgot to replace them.
And
Fine, and thank you, Steph, for typing up all of the post-its
Mhm.
really clearly. I think that was really helpful.
yeah.
Is Maureen busy this morning or late, or is she gonna be here?
That's a good point. So yeah, we're missing a few. Fritz, although Fritz had said he couldn't make one of the meetings, maybe this was today's meeting I couldn't make.
Sorry, just seeing your email now. I will go.
Okay. Oh, and Maureen's here, just in time. So,
For the record, we
any
just
other
said we
notes?
missed you dearly.
Any other comments on the minutes from last meeting? And if not, can I have somebody to move?
Yes.
Michael moves. Second, thank you. And all in favor? Okay, there we go. Next one off the list, okay. So then we move on to public comments. We have one member of the public, Don. Any comments, would you like to say anything?
No, actually, it's one thing, I have emailed some information to this committee, and somehow it seems that my emailing skills are somewhat off or what, but I don't think we received it yet, so.
Okay.
What they are is,
Receive any fruit that came to the committee? Did anybody?
Why don't I just check that, because this is good to know,
Email
that we want to
address.
know that the email for the committee is working. I have something regarding restrictive covenants
yeah.
from September 18th. Is
I
that?
sent it again yesterday, or maybe 4 years, yesterday. What is it? It's two emails with, in total, I think it's 6 attachments, 7 attachments.
Okay.
And what they are reports and studies that have been done by Salt Spring, Tofino, Columbia, a few of those. So I just thought it might give you some resources to take a look at
Okay.
what's been done rather than trying to kind of,
Oh, wait, reinvent the wheel?
well, just take it all on.
Yeah.
And so anyhow,
Thank you.
If you haven't got it, I'll check it out, see if I can send it back to you.
Okay, let's make that an action item to follow up with Dawn, make sure that information's been received.
So individual committee members then are received this?
Uh,
So the emails are going to everybody's email
yeah,
inbox?
so it's more, no, I think make it me,
Okay.
because then if I get it, everybody, we'll trust that everybody gets it on the committee, right? So Mike, we'll just follow up and make sure that it's been received by at least one. Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, public comments done. Action items, review of action items from the September 7th meeting, and I appreciate this, on the committees that we're on, we list out, we break out the action items separately, so on page 6 of your agenda package, there's a list of action items, which is great, so for future, this comes out with the minutes, right, staff? So for future, when you receive the minutes, if you haven't got a lot of time, have a quick look, and then also it's really good, a few days before the meeting, have a quick look at the action items that are broken out here, really easy to read and see, and make sure if you had any that hopefully you followed up on them. So one, create resource binders, I think that's done. And how's the digital, how's that working?
Okay,
Did you
so
send out a link or?
What I did with the digital version is on the Housing Advisory Committee page.
Oh,
At the
okay.
bottom, I just linked Maureen's document as a reference item, and then within Maureen's document are all the links. Is that okay
Okay,
for
yep.
everybody?
Yeah, if that's the same that's on paper, then that
Same.
works for me.
And regarding the paper, just because there would have been 1,000 tabs, I kind of grouped them. Maureen, I took them a little bit out of order. Sorry if that happened. I put them in groups by category just to reduce the number of tabs. So it makes sense. If it doesn't, we can rearrange them.
Yeah, I'm actually just on the page I've downloaded, so I've got the report that Marie did, and it's got all the different links to all sorts of, yeah. And the policies, the speaker series, reports and videos, municipal tools, all those kind of things, engagement event, the community lands workshop.
So that's the committee page. You just go, if you see up here, we go to the main homepage of the Bow Municipality homepage. Our government is a drop down committees. And here, actually, this is kind of useful. So on the right is where you have the list of meetings. Once an agenda has been published, you'll see you can get an HTML or PDF version. And the live stream video, which is on now, will appear under the video column. So you can see here the video is going now. But these guys haven't met yet, so there's no video there. Okay, so then we go down here.
And this is useful too if you've missed a meeting and you want to watch the video to catch up. This is the best place to go. And then click on the video, you can watch the meeting and catch up.
Minutes are not posted until they're adopted. Adoption entails this committee adopting them, so it's usually a month later. That's when you find them in the minutes line. So here's where the Housing Advisory Committee, click that to get to your page. So this is your page. Pretty clean so far. You guys are new. Video recordings. If live stream has failed, which happens occasionally, we'll post backup to this page. So here it says go to committee page, but if you can't find it on the committee page, you can find it here. And here reference documents. And we have the terms of references there. And here is reference documents. There's the island plan. And here's the excellent report that Councilor Nicholson created. Click through there. And you're going to have all your links. It occurred to me to break them out and list them on the page, but then I also thought you could do it this way, not waste text.
Is this what you do in your spare time?
Does that work for everybody?
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions?
I see. Is everyone got their computers? Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you so much, Deb. Good run through. And then, yeah, if you have any questions about that stuff, I think feel free to contact
Yes,
Steph or
please
even
do.
me if you want to help navigating any of that.
It's a lot of information.
It is a lot.
As you will appreciate it.
Yeah.
If I may, I'd like to announce, in the spirit of telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I've only memorized by half up to tab 3.
Memorized, okay.
Yeah. Seriously, this is a fantastic document. I give a lot. Thank you very much. This took a lot of work to do. With everything else going on right now, I wish I could tell you that I have spent the appropriate amount of time going through this from tab 1 right the way through to tab 10. It happens.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sure you're not alone. I don't think I've read every single document either, although I'm pretty sure I've looked at most of them. And I feel like, I don't think it was homework to read the whole document before you got here today. I have a feeling we're gonna spend the next number of months as we meet. And please, if you read something in there that's of interest, make note of it, bring it to the meeting, say, hey, you know, this month I actually was reading this bit, and this is, I think, something we could pull in and bring. And I also think where it will bring us is today's exercise, which I'm hoping will prioritize and create some action next steps. You'll then start referring to this document. So you'll be probably doing, and where I think the digital resources are useful, why I like digital a bit better than paper, is the search function. So if you're looking for some specific information, you open up the PDF, use the search, you can find, so we'll be probably picking and choosing and diving into little bits and pieces of all of these references and, you know, things that we're getting from other sources and doing more research. So I think as we move with our priorities and next steps, we'll get through it. But yes, if you have a lonely weekend day sitting at home doing nothing, feel free to go cover to cover, but that certainly isn't my expectation. But yeah, work your way through it if you can.
Can I just draw folks' attention to one page in this great big stack? So under tab 3, there's a report that was produced on November the 17th. And it's the report that,
November 27th?
November 17th. The meeting date was November 27th. So it's the report that was, that introduced the, let's establish the Housing Advisory Committee. Yeah, and right at the very back, there's one page. And it's like the most uninteresting looking page.
Oh, yeah.
But it's extraordinarily important. No, keep going.
Oh, it's a spreadsheet there.
No, keep going.
Keep going.
Going.
Sorry, those are all very interesting looking bits.
01 to 16.
page.
Yeah.
So what this is it's the census data between 2001 and 2016. And it shows you how the population has shifted, and it also shows you how the dwellings have changed over that time. And the shocking piece for me in this is the little last column, the number of rentals.
Yes, this one, the 5.
260 to 265, yeah.
There's been an increase of 5 rentals over that 15-year period, and there has been an increase in owner-occupied of 345 in that period. So if you take nothing else away from this, it just really highlights where the growth is occurring and where it's not.
And it's 2 years out of date.
Pardon? Yeah.
I would argue
Yeah, it could probably be
subjectively
more than that.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the 2016 data. It could very well be 3 years out of date. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, back to our action items list. So I think we've just addressed this, read the information and the links in the housing series and bring comments. So, yep, just keep plugging away at it, and if you do have anything interesting to pull out, bring it back to us as a group. Send on-table speeches to report to community members with a reminder to read. I think that's done. That's the same thing, basically. Collate workshop data and share with community members. That was done. Thank you. Review the workshop information. Think about where you're passionate and where you would like to contribute. So that will come out, I think, in the progress of this meeting. Hopefully you'll come prepared to discuss it. Excellent. So, back to the agenda. Here. That's complete. Next. Yeah, 5, business arising from the minutes. So, review of reference binder contents. I feel like maybe we just accomplished that. Does anybody have anything else to go over or thoughts on the binder, or we'll move along?
Other than just a vote of thanks, I think.
Yes, thanks to staff.
Someone went to a tremendous amount of trouble to put this together.
Yeah, and I think Maureen for the report, because that was a lot of work to pull information and then a lot of information to, print it all out and collate it and prepare it for us. So yes, thank you very much, Steph and Maureen.
Much easier to work with than the online, I find.
Yeah, and that's, we're all different, right? So I'm much more digital based and having paper and everything, I totally get it. So it's nice that we can be adaptable.
Later, will you give lectures on how you do that? Because seriously, I'm looking at the amount of paper here, and out of respect for what we've done, I would love to learn, I'm sure the rest of the council is, the technique of being able to do this digitally, because I don't have it, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Maureen, I know this is your area of expertise, and yet I'm
Oh, for notes.
okay. All right, I'm
I'd
reassured.
be happy to, I'm hoping we might finish early today, let's see how we go. I'd be absolutely happy to today or another day sit at the end and chat to people about how I do it at least, whether that works for everybody, but certainly I can tell you how I do it, yeah. Okay, so review reference when we're done. Workshop the HAC plan, so that's kind of so the next big chunks that we have are reviewing the work we did last time, hopefully prioritizing them, making it into a one-year plan, which I think, was that it? Yeah, this implementation plan, we don't have to follow this exact format, but coming up with some priorities. And then I'm hoping that we can come up with actually some action items, next steps. Possibly are there some subcommittees coming out of this, but essentially that's the chunk of our work today, is reviewing this. And I would love it if at the end of today, we had a list of priorities, whatever that number might be. It shouldn't be too many. I'm hoping it'll be, you know, somewhere in the realm of, I don't know, 3 to 6, you know, top priorities. And then we'll figure out, and we'll know how we're gonna tackle them, whether that's individuals, subcommittees, you know, group work, whatever it's gonna be. So that's my goal for the end of today. And maybe we'll just quickly do the information items, which is number 6, before we kind of dive in. Because I think they're just to be brought to the attention of each committee. Is that?
Yeah, so the community lands, so page 10 out of 11. Council would like all community members to be knowledgeable of the community lands workshop that took place and the report that was generated. So there's a link, and it's also in your binder.
It's in the binder.
It's in the binder, yeah. And the next one is Affordable Housing Reserve Fund bylaw was adopted.
And I actually haven't read that bylaw, so I should make a note to myself to actually read the wording.
And that's also,
Because I think that's going to be really relevant to our group. We should know how that functions and what it can do. Great. Okay, so let's dive in. So if you haven't already, on page 7 and 8, we've got, I might just take mine out of the here. We've got, this is the summary of all of those post-its that we had out last time. Oh, you've got it here, right, things down. So what I'm hoping is, because there's a lot, and there's just, practically speaking, as a group of people with busy lives, there is no way we're going to tackle all of these. So what I'd like today is to figure out how we can, first of all, if these headings are appropriate, if we need to shuffle a few things around, figure out what our priorities are and what are some attainable things that we could do in, let's say, a one-year working plan, and then at the end come up with actions of how we're actually going to do it. So does anybody, first I'm just going to kind of open it up, does anybody have any thoughts or reflections, or is anybody particularly excited about one section or the other? And then what I'm thinking, once we've kind of had a bit of a discussion around them, what I might do is probably get out some Post-its or the whiteboard again, and we'll just kind of workshop a little bit and figure out how we might prioritize some of these, but I'll just first open it up.
No, you go
No,
first.
go after you.
No,
Well, I'm still trying to formulate my question, actually.
Okay.
I wonder if it might help. You're right, we've got a lot of things here.
Yeah.
Some of the things are either easily answered, or we could actually just, in the spirit of 3 to 6, which I really agree, set aside. And just to give one example, find out more about new provincially funded needs assessment. We could probably answer that one quickly, or I don't know whether we can answer it quickly, or we can't, or we can say that we don't know, we're waiting to hear, in which case it simply goes off the table, and we might that way very quickly, with one-liners and one comment, be able to reduce this list, which I
Right.
think would be helpful.
Okay.
We'll come back to it when we know about provincial needs assessment. It'll come
Yeah.
back on the table.
So what, should we maybe go line by line and say, as a collective group, either that's easy and fast, we should do that, you know, regardless of what the 3 to 6 things, there probably are a couple of things here that are literally one of us spending half an hour to bring it back to group. Do you know what I mean? So the low-hanging fruit, if you will.
Or it's just not timely.
Or it's, yeah, and then there's some that maybe are just, nope, put that on the, I like to call it the parking lot, that's important, we want to address it, but too hard, or we need more information later, or let's just shove that off. And then anything else in the middle is what we'll kind of dive into today. So I'm going to leave the goals and visions, because that's kind of separate, but so info surveys. I actually feel like this is something we should talk about today. Does anybody have any? Yeah?
Sorry, which line are you on?
I'm at 2A. So and this is under get information, so surveys. I think we should talk about that today.
Oh, this is a long list.
Yes. So we should talk about that today.
Today,
And then, identify people in danger of homelessness. I think, talk about that, or is that a,
It's not I think that's an issue, but I don't think that's helping us move forward right now on this.
Okay.
Unless we just have that, we say, yes, we know that it's this amount of people, and then we move on.
I think it does require 5 minutes,
yeah?
just a little bit of time.
You think that's a quick one?
Yep.
bylaw might have some information about this.
Yeah.
Because of the votes.
Bylaw might, and then also, Paolo, the police, and then also the emergency cold weather shelter. Like, so that's something, and are you on that,
No,
committee?
I'm not.
Okay.
But I am aware of folks who are in danger.
Okay, and I'm trying to liaise with them as well, with my work with Birch, I'm trying to.
I
get
just
in
think,
touch with them,
given
so.
what we're doing here, that's
So-
a good group.
Let's put that as, what can we head this
Action item.
as an action, let's just put it as an action item, it's not a task for the group to tackle, it's an action item, okay, let's work with that. List of invisible housing, I think that's an action too, I think that's actually just like one person spending an hour figuring it out or something, but I'm happy to be, to discuss. Is that Maureen, because I think that was probably your idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, it should be fairly straightforward because it's just surfacing what's going through planning at this point.
Yeah,
So when we say invisible housing,
Yes.
sorry, what's
Just
it?
that's housing that's either being approved or is near approval.
Good.
Oh, in the process
do you
of.
remember my example of the big model in Sydney of their downtown, that they have the physical model?
Yeah.
Daniel, you missed this, but in
Yeah.
Sydney, Australia,
Yep.
they have this physical model downtown, and everything's gray that's existing, and then everything that's proposed at different stages has to be modeled at different colors.
Huh.
So you know what's like preliminary, what's in building permit, what's in, the different
Yeah.
stages.
Lego.
Yeah, like Lego.
Lego.
So it's kind of that, I mean, not that we'll get a physical one, but maybe
Yeah.
it's even a map, maybe it's something, because the visuals help me, I don't know about you guys. So even if we can just get, and it could be a black and white printout at Bowen, and it can just be, like Grafton Lakes is the perfect
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
It's basically, has been approved or is just about to be fully approved, and it's gonna be X number of units. So it'd be good to sort of have that in mind, to know, oh, hey, there's actually a big number here, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that's sort of, I feel like, kind of an action item. I don't think that's like as a group we need to
Yeah.
tackle it, it's just, one or two people to do it and bring it back. Okay?
Could I jump in?
Please.
So, yes, so the thinking that I had done after our last meeting is, given the fact that we have a fairly small population, that we have a clear sense of what the income level is for our population, thanks to the survey, would it be possible, is it relevant to create a sense of how many rental units are we actually looking at trying to create? Like, are there any statistics for a population of 100 people, of whom 60 of them are under the $80,000 per year, and the rest of them can afford to purchase houses? How many apartments do you need to have a balanced and diverse population?
I wonder whether Stephen might be the best to answer that anecdotally of what's the waiting list for Village Square, which is the largest
Yes.
rental housing on the island.
Yes.
We've spoken
Well-
publicly about that. We got between 26 and 28 people looking for 15 units,
Yes.
and the turnover ratio is about 2 a year.
Right.
So
And I
Probably
think
allowed for
what
one
I'd
or
like to
something.
do, I agree, but I think I would want to broaden that. And one thing that Steve and I actually met for coffee the other day and talked about essentially kind of a gap analysis. And I think that could be, is that fair to say? Or
Yes.
a little-
Well, I think my point was that I'm not sure why we need research, because we're not gonna go out and build a 200-unit high-rise, whether it be a condo, a rental, whether it's private capital or public capital. I think we all know it's just not gonna happen. So whatever's gonna go up, it's gonna be 6 units here, at the most a dozen units there, 5 here, and you can argue about what type of housing it is. And if we build any of that, you could probably list 10 different kinds of housing, and I can come back to the earlier comment I made before, Robin, is that they're gonna either be sold or full. So in other words, you build it and they will come. So the idea you're trying to analyze what we need, the need is gonna be bigger than we're ever gonna build in this island in the next 5 years. So you can segment the market. I think that is very important in terms of the type of housing that we need. But I think to do research, to figure out whether you need 72 units or 73 units, I think that's a waste of time and money.
I don't think I was thinking 72 or 73 as much as, are we thinking 20 units, are we thinking 100 units?
Yeah, no,
That's very different type
I
of
think it's a
planning.
very relevant point, and I like the thinking on that, so don't misinterpret
Yeah.
my comment. I'm just saying, within the range of expectation of being able to build a set number of units, they're gonna be sold or full, and so we don't need to know whether it's 100 or 200, because we're not gonna build that many, is
Okay.
my simple
All
point
right, okay.
type of thing.
What-
But
what
I
I'm
think it's
sort
like
of
the better thing to do is to segment the market and the kind of housing that one would expect to build,
Yes.
and how do you get them built, even if it's just one unit type of thing.
So I see that under number 3, which is identify the gaps and
Yes.
needs. And I think how, so I think it addresses yours, because
Yes,
and I'll slightly disagree respectfully with Steve a little bit. I do like a little bit of data and research, so I don't want to go heavily into that. We certainly don't need another report.
On your data,
Yeah.
what about above the general store? They have those apartments, right?
Yeah, so we,
I wonder whether the general store, the owners there could give information similar to Steve, because
Yeah.
then you've got another figure.
That would just take a simple call out.
and
Yeah,
that's what I'm
yeah.
thinking, that's what one of my thoughts was, I would love to know, how many, so I'd love to do just a little survey, it would be quick, it would be and exactly, it would be literally phone calls to 4 or 5 people. How many rental units are there and what are they? Are they 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, or whatever? And what's your waiting list?
I'd
And
be
I like
happy
the
to do
chart
that.
over, that was useful. Yeah, so maybe it's an action
I
item
would
for
take that
Allison.
on.
And then we have a better concept of what actually is our formal rental stock. Obviously, this won't include suites and all of that kind of stuff, but formally, what is our rental stock, I guess, in the code particularly, but yeah.
And then if you look at the income brackets, it becomes pretty clear.
Yeah, and
how
if
many
they're able-
families need rental.
And if they're able to share a range of rental rates, like that would be useful, if they're willing to, that would be useful, and again, it can be a range, we don't wanna, ask for information that they're not comfortable giving, but, certainly that would be useful. Okay, but let's go back, we were at 2D with building permits, is that setting our goals? I can't remember that one, so let's talk about that one.
Oh, that was hard to read, that's the square
okay.
brackets.
I'm thinking, is that meeting our goals, something like that, is that?
Yeah, probably meeting.
Is that looking for like how many we issue?
How
Yeah,
have they
maybe.
issued, where have they been?
So-
Um,
Okay.
So we easily have, like, we would put out building permit numbers.
Okay, so that's easy
That's,
to find.
like, that's easy. Where they are, we don't often put out, we'd have to go and actually dig up past permits.
Agree, so is it perhaps like the Lego one?
Yeah.
Similarly a map, just putting pins in it, just showing, so moving forward, this is where the building is going on the island. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know,
The other thing that I'd have to look how we track is like net new unit. In terms of sometimes
Yeah.
we give building permits, but we give a demolition permit, right? So it's like there's a house built, but it's not actually a new house. And that's, well, it's a new house, but it's
That
not like
might
a
be
net
useful.
new
Oh, yeah,
house.
yeah, yeah.
That's what's happening
Yeah.
in Vancouver big
Yes.
time. And the
Yeah.
prediction is by 2035, half the single families are gonna disappear in Vancouver.
Well, yeah, now
It's a real
that
big issue.
change to big houses, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's, I feel like that's also just like an action item thing, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a big chunk of a project that,
So net
we
new
have to take on
builds.
as a group.
So that would be me.
Yeah, I know.
So, and we can discuss all of these
Sorry.
action items, we don't have to load
That's
them all on you. Specific current projects, the fire hall, so, and this is all under this heading of get information, so, yeah, these might just be action items or, like, I'm not sure, get specific current projects, if there's anything, does anybody remember who wrote that
In the
one?
fire hall, the councilors would know this, has there been very much or any discussion about having residences as part of that structure?
Oh,
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yes,
It's a-
yes and no.
it was a hard
Yeah.
no, when I
Yeah.
brought it up, it was a hard, firm no. And the main driver being cost, is they said because of the, post-disaster requirements for building the fire hall, it has to be really robustly built to then build residences on top, the engineering and everything, so, and they quoted some, because the architect who's working on the municipal one has worked on the one in Vancouver that had housing on top, and they gave some numbers around how much it cost, and I think it was pretty ineffective, given our land. Like, I think in Vancouver it probably was, because land is so precious there, but I think given our land and our level of density, it's not cost effective. unfortunately.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
I find that a little bit hard to imagine, but, okay.
I feel like the community center might be a little better, but again, I'm not sure that we can go there, because they're built to a lesser seismic standard. And things like the health center, which again is a private thing, so we can't, there's only so much we can do, but I for sure try to get it in there whenever I can and mention it to people. Any further comments or discussion, we're just, follow up on that one? No?
There's also a concern about timeliness, in that injecting housing into a project that's quite far along would extend the time. So with the fire hall, we've got funding approval, the planning is underway, the land is allocated, and it's taken a while to get there. So adding in the housing element could add 2-3 years to something that could be done in the next year.
That's a good point, thanks, Marie. So I'm looking at F, potential community projects. I can't remember, does any?
Sorry, I'm crossing E off then?
E off, yeah.
Everyone
I
okay with
think,
that?
one of the main issues there was, and it could be a very simple timeline, is we're going to have a skilled trades problem on the island. In that you've got 3 or 4 big civic projects that are on the drawing boards or whatever you want to say. And we don't have large scale, with respect to our builders. We got some great home builders, but we don't have large scale contractors on the island. And the chances of getting them off the mainland here without a premium price, we're kidding ourselves. So I think to have a timeline for construction of some of these community projects, and where's the windows? I can put it that way. At least so it's front and center on our mind, and more important, it's front and center on the council's mind. That is a big issue. Even the big trade shops in Vancouver are very nervous about taking on big projects because they don't have skilled labor. Many of them are thankful in a different way that Trans Mountain has been postponed, because otherwise it would really chew up the skilled trades situation.
So this line's about skilled trades,
Yes.
is that?
And today's unemployment
Okay.
figures, by the way, in BC are up, are announced at 3.9.
And you get the LNG project going now, and you say, well, that's not going to affect us. We all know people on this island that are working in the Northwest Territories, okay, not on LNG. So the idea that we got skilled trades here and somebody's offering them double time, 40 hours a week to go to Prince Rupert, they're going to be gone in a nanosecond. So it's going to be a big
Okay,
issue.
so I think that's keep it on the list, because I agree, I think, and that might tie into some other stuff we're talking about, industrial lands and stuff as well. So I think let's keep that up for discussion.
So could a rough action on that be getting a general timeline?
I think it's just a
Specific projects.
timeline, so we know what we got, like size of the project, and this should be coming off the spring of 2021 or something.
So Steve, do you want to offer to do, who can create that timeline? If it's an action item for somebody.
So that would be working with Shauna and Jackie, I guess, for community center, fire hall, information.
I think Michael and I should do this one.
I was gonna say-
Because it's like.
You willing?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is more than a 2-page report. We're working overtime.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that this is a living document, and it's going to need to be adjusted as projects come on and off and change their dates and size and
And over
scope.
above housing, Michael, just the city itself, it's not gonna happen, I don't think. You don't wanna bid the community center, the city hall, the fire hall, the medical clinic, and Birch all on the same day. I'm being absurd when I say that, but you got the principle.
Now, that's one of the main concerns I have, and it's not just in terms of lack of skilled trades, it's in terms of things like traffic management.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so
Deliveries.
much going on in the Cove, and if all these things do sort of move forward simultaneously, it will be a nightmare.
Can you imagine if they
Two
all started
ferries a
going in
week
June?
for cars.
Sorry.
They'll allow 2 ferries a week for cars.
Well, actually, that's very interesting, because but not for now. But that actually, once this does come up, that actually does raise special shipping, ferrying, cost of out of normal hours issues. You can only get a pint of water into a pint pot.
And can I ask to include the
Deliveries.
yes, I'd like special, self-interest there, but
Groceries and things?
yes, but not going on to the ferry terminal is going to reduce to 2 as they refresh it, and putting that against big
Yes.
project.
That's a
is
very
going-
good, that's a very good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, we've
It's
got
gonna be
that
a
on
bomb
our-
show over there for a while.
We've got that on our radar, 250 million now,
But
being spent.
we're talking about an overall planning of how things work together. It
Yes.
might be a tool to help, not just us, but
Okay, so I think that's great, Maureen and Michael, if you're willing to take that on, because I think you're right, it will spill over into other parts of the municipality as well, that will be useful for us to have. So we'll put that as an action for you guys. Okay, action. So next one, G, support for people in housing with mental health and connecting with Vancouver Coastal Health. I actually think this could be, and I'm happy to take this on unless anybody else particularly wants to, or wants to go, maybe help me. I'm happy to connect with Vancouver Coastal Health and maybe Caring Circle, or I'll figure out who on island to talk to see, because that's one of my things, I sort of have a visual of all of the different housing needs on the island and what I know is missing. And I know for sure ones for people with, physical disabilities and mental health problems, and how could we possibly be addressing those if we are, and there might be stuff that I don't know about, right?
I'd be
That's invisible to the
I'd be a
public.
resource to you as well on
Okay.
that one.
So let's make that just an action, and that's for Robin and Allison.
And we do have a specific contact with Vancouver Coastal Health.
Oh, great.
And I'll forward you his
Okay,
contact.
Maureen will do that, fantastic. Okay, so I think that can, and that's just, we'll bring that information back and it'll feed into other work that we do. Essential infrastructure is the next one. There's gonna be a lot of action items out of this.
H&J by chance?
H and J, okay,
I
let's,
saw
let's,
this.
yeah.
I'm not sure
remember-
about the money there, maybe the money is how do you get the money for the infrastructure.
And remember, these were Post-its, right? So they were all Post-its and just grouped together.
Yeah, that's probably
so-
some of my scribble.
Yeah, that's all right.
But I think H&J are about the same.
Yeah, so
issue,
sewer,
more or less.
water, money, essential infrastructure. So I think, and sorry, what I was just about to say was there's gonna be a lot of action items, so I'm gonna feel safe that we're probably gonna generate a list of action items that won't be like for next month. I think let's at the end of today's meeting, review the action items and then kind of decide what to take on in the next month. And yeah, because I feel like we're getting a lot of action items here. So H, essential infrastructure, J, sewer, water, and money, and I'm guessing that just meant where does the money come from for
Yeah,
those things.
that's what
For
I-
example, I've heard people say, hey, can we extend the sewer down towards lot 1 of the community lands, right? And what would
Yeah.
that look like, and what would that cost, and where does the money come from, and all that. So those kinds of ideas. I'm gonna put that on the discussion. I don't think that's an action item, so that's just up for discussion and prioritizing and looking into. So that's H and J. And then, yeah,
I
go ahead.
suspect that one of the things that's being discussed at the moment is some sort of infrastructure plan.
For the
And
whole
there was
municipality.
some work done on that during this past term, but
This is for the renewal and stuff and the, yes.
asset
yes,
management.
the asset
So
management
it's-
plan.
It's likely that that will move outside of this committee
Yes.
into an RFP context. So we would be
Okay.
informed.
Robert, it's interesting there too, even if you had Captain Bob come in or give us a map of where the water and sewer system is and give us some estimates of running costs per foot
Yeah,
to
and you know what, I
expend it.
actually
This
think.
might be nice just to have a benchmark
Yeah,
that,
and I actually think we
Yeah.
already have cost per lineal foot of some stuff, just based on research that we've done this year.
again, it doesn't have to be a 10-page deal. It
No,
could be
I'm actually-
Bob and 2-3 pages of
Yeah.
explanation.
I'm actually thinking we could probably, again, this might even be our visual map, we might just have one map and it has a bunch of information on it. And we get a highlighter and it shows, again, that's probably Bob
Sewer,
could just do
water,
that in,
and
you know.
visible
minutes.
buildings, and that could all be
Yeah, and
done.
that, and we can either have different
We'd
colors,
be
or we can even
geniuses
have
by the end of
layers.
the meeting.
Yeah, so we can. So, yeah, let's kind of add that, and
I'll
it's,
do
again,
that.
it's just visuals for us to know and be
I think
aware of.
Visuals work really well.
Yeah,
Can you,
yeah,
put that as like a planning department, maybe?
Oh,
We can map that.
you can map that, okay, great.
Yeah.
Would be helpful, you know, because
Another action
Yeah,
item for today. Okay, and again, I don't think we'll ask
Yeah,
to
no,
this,
that's
to do this in the next month, it'll be a
Yeah.
list. Okay, and then the
So
next,
are we inviting Bob to a meeting or not?
I don't think so, let's wait and hear back, and then
Because we
I
have
think.
that GIS, we have that, we'll just show water lines and water districts and sewer
Yes.
lines and
Yeah,
sewer
and we can
districts.
always amplify it,
On
if
it.
it's on a printed, we can always
Yeah.
amplify it with highlighters.
actually speaking as a councillor at the moment, I say at the moment, I think a map showing the water, that, if you could just put that at the back of your mind, that would actually be, generally speaking, very helpful.
Yeah, like we have one on our website that's on our OCP map, but it's like a,
Yeah,
you know, or I guess it's bigger, but it gets printed
That was
this
all.
big.
No,
I don't
I
think
just
it's right
if
now.
if it could, it would be useful, it would be useful.
Yeah.
Well, and
Okay.
Robin, we've got those figures which were from Bob earlier.
Yeah, I've got them in my notes, yeah,
Of the cost of
just per lineal
It's
foot,
like a guess, yeah.
yeah, so we
80
can
to
have that
100 rings a bell.
readily available, yeah. So I'm gonna go on to 2I, how many community workers live off island?
That has to really to do with looking at the gap.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think let's just shuffle that down, that might be in more in 3 with the gaps. So if we look at number 3, I think that whole section 3 is up for debate, unless there's any particular items in there you think are, let's cross it off as an action item. Takeaways from the survey, market needs, people with work, what housing is achieved. So I think all of that is a to-do,
Yeah.
a big to-do, let's talk about it and prioritize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it all melds into one.
Yeah, yeah. And so number 4, best practices, lessons learned. So this is where, again, we probably have a ton of information already that we will slowly get through in the binders. We're gonna have some, like Dawn has sent some, there's, you know, some of us might just come across things or do more research. So, I'm gonna see how far does that go, yeah. So we have investigate community lands trust, the BIM and our website, which is great, it's already up there. Zoning, what was this one? How are others communities doing past Bowen reports? I can't quite remember what that one was about. No? Okay. Clear process for developers on the BIM website. So that's, yeah, it's I think that's a possible
Well,
task
the
that we
clear
could take
path
on.
was, we want to achieve stuff, we want to move quickly.
Yeah.
Probably we could take this off the table, but for a side discussion with Daniel, how simple, straightforward, transparent, and certain can we make the process? Because with all the other factors that we deal with, labor, costs, interest rates, throw them all in the bucket. The fact is, the more certain we can make the process, the more likely we are to succeed in simplifying the process. And I would have to defer I would be very happy to take that off right now, but I think it's important.
Yeah.
Because if our process is convoluted or we need help in changing stuff, to assist Daniel to make sure that
So-
a prospective development that we want
Yeah.
really gets the input from council at the right stage and moves through as efficiently as possible with the least impediments and whatever that takes from.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'd like to put that one in the parking lot. I think it's important, I don't think it's a high priority, and I suspect that it will come back in when we do prioritize. Like if we do create this gaps analysis, I think that's gonna come up and it's gonna say, okay, why aren't we getting this segment built? And I suspect that's gonna be one of them, because there's uncertainty, it's unclear and all that stuff. And then maybe it becomes an action, is that fair to say? So we'll put it on, you know, the parking lot, so it's not, yeah, okay.
Robin, I don't dispute where you want to go, that's probably one of the top 5.
Is that top for
Reasons
you?
why we don't
Yes.
have housing.
Okay,
I-
so
I-
I'm happy to,
Look at the
let's keep it
province.
in the mix.
Yeah, keep it
There's somewhere
in the
between
mix.
Keep it in the mix.
125,000 and 150,000 housing units pending.
Yeah,
And provincial government's goal is to build 114,000. So just think of those two streams of numbers.
yeah.
In 10 years, by the way.
Yeah, okay, so let's keep it in the mix. Yep, to be discussed. Well, I'll go back now. So investigate community lands trust. Is that a high priority for people?
That's something that could be done relatively easily. We've
Yeah.
got the Bowen Housing Series. This
Yeah.
was on the list of potential topics.
Yeah.
So if it's something we want to pursue, it would be an invitation to the folks at Community Lands Trust in Vancouver, or potentially invite some people up from Orcas Island.
Yeah.
So it's easy to do. It's just
Okay.
a matter of when would be a good time to do it.
So I think that's a great way to do it, because I do think that the community lands trust model is something valid that we could as a community explore and we as a committee could explore. And so maybe that's the first step, is getting a speaker up. So I think that's really useful. So,
You can put me down.
do we put Maureen on that one? Okay.
Is that gonna be for this committee, or the council, or for the public? Open?
If it's Bowen Housing, it would be open.
And it's like the speaker series?
Speaker
Kind of
series,
Speaker series?
yeah. And subject to getting council okay to continue with that series in the coming year.
Yeah, okay.
Should we do a recommendation from this committee to ask council to get an okay to do that?
No, not yet.
I think there's enough, yeah.
Going on. And then, of course, if it for some reason doesn't work out that it's at that level, then we can invite the speaker to this
Yes,
committee
yeah.
and also have.
I don't think it's going to be a big fight.
No, exactly. So we'll just put that as a speaker to get that conversation going. And then I'm gonna cross out B, the website. That's kind of, I think that'll be work in progress, and as we find interesting resources, we can have them put up on the website. And then zoning, sorry, I'm just revisiting because I didn't, I'm just gonna put the question mark because I can't remember. Maybe that'll come back to us what that one was about. C. D, we've covered. E, look at how our current rental housing was created and is maintained. I remember somebody, was that Allison, did you bring that up? So you wanted to sort of,
Like, again, just say, well, we do have rental housing. How is
Yeah.
it, what was the impetus for builders to create it? Stephen, for example.
yeah, okay,
So,
and
how did they do that?
And I feel like that might come into this, again, sorry to be so visual, but maybe I should just sort of, can I sketch out your
Sure.
spreadsheet that we kind
Yeah.
of did? So, and again,
Do I
a
get
lot
a
of
royalty
these things I think
override
will
for
fit
this?
in. So it's sort of,
Same big check as you get for a 10 years meeting?
yeah, exactly, and I'll just do it quickly, I'm
Too
not gonna
broad.
fill everything in. But it was sort of the idea of we have, I don't know what, so we call it like, social housing, let's just call it that for you know, short term here. Social housing, we'll call it below, sorry, this is not very dark here. Below market. And then under that, there's rent, and there's own, and then there's, I guess what would we call market? Rent, and then market own. And I think there was a few other, sorry, this is very messy. There's some other stuff, but you get the idea. There would be certain segments. And then some of the stuff down here was, like, what was required to kind of achieve it, right? Like zoning or?
Yeah, I think, Judge,
Yeah.
across the top, I saw 3 blocks. One is extension of existing dwellings. This is secondary suites, other houses in the backyard, converting the garage. I call it extension of existing structures,
Right.
which council's doing a lot of right now.
Yeah.
The second one I saw was taxpayer-supported housing. And subset of that, you've got townhouses, apartments, employee housing, things like that. And then you got private capital supported
Right.
housing, which is apartments, townhouses, and condos. And that is a spectrum of possible housing to segment the market, and you can fine tune it a little bit. So that would go across the top of the matrix. And then down the side, what have you gotta do to get those things moving? And just some examples of it without any priority. You gotta know where the land is. You gotta know where the infrastructure is. We just talked about sewer and water. You gotta have equity capital. You gotta have debt capital. Equity capital could be provincial capital. You still need equity to get the funding down below. You've got availability of construction. You've got approval process. You can go down and you can probably list about 20 of them
Yeah.
that may not be applicable across everything in the matrix. And so if you targeted which are those types of housing that you wanted, you could then see what it would take to get them built.
So if we said, for example, we want, hey, we don't have any townhouses on board, we really want, and market rate, like how do we encourage somebody to do that? We would look down and see, okay, well, say, you know, that's not relevant, but this is, how do we get that, how do we get that? So it's kind of doing a whole spreadsheet, I think you could, you know, a
Very
subcommittee could really work the titles in this way, you know, figure out what all the different titles and headings and everything should be, but that's the idea, is that you kind of figure out where we need it, and then I like the idea that then we could take that information and prioritize and say, okay, here's like 3 things that we think, hey, we could actually make a difference or whatever, and do something to
Okay,
encourage
what's
that.
gonna come out of that is the chances of getting private capital apartments on the island are slim and nil. That bus left the station 18 months ago. And the reason for that is, I mean, the cost of capital for equity capital has gone up, as we all know. The mortgage rates are going up. They're up like 1.5 in the last year. Construction costs are up. And the provincial government decided that they didn't want any more rentals built, so they just messed with the rental cap, which means nobody's gonna build any. We saw it happen in Ontario. So you can just put a line right down there. and
Rental.
The only private capital building you're gonna get is gonna be condos, possibly.
You're missing something though, and that's that you've got an affordable housing policy. And the upshot of having that affordable housing policy is that we'll have 35 rental units in Grafton over the next 10 years. We've got rental units above the pub. We've got rental units above the distillery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is quite true. I think you will get rental units if they're attached to some other project because the balance of the project will subsidize. So for example, the economic benefit of the pub is subsidizing those rental units. The economic benefit of the vodka bar is subsidizing them. And the people that are buying lots in Grafton Park are subsidizing the affordable housing. So if it's in conjunction with another project, it'll be happening, if I could expand my answer before. But freestanding, I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
So they introduced a thing to what Steve said is mixed use. It's like we build a
Yes.
hotel now.
Yes.
A freestanding hotel is not going to get built.
Right.
If it's attached, as you see downtown, to condos, retail and all the other stuff, paid parking, yes, it gets done.
Yeah.
So there is a sort of kind of mixed use, and I don't know, I don't care how you do it,
Yeah.
but, and I love the way it's simple, we don't want
So-
1,000 headings, but that mixed use component is really what we're talking
Michael,
about.
just
So-
to continue
yeah.
rambling on here, is what that would say then, if you want some private capital, if the province can't fund everything for us, then you gotta have some sites where there's commercial on the bottom and apartments on above somehow, a la the pub, a la the vodka bar, a la Grafton Lake, for example. Grafton Lake's a little different because the attachment is lateral and not horizontal, is the only difference.
So I'm gonna stop there because this is awesome and we could probably spend a whole meeting on this.
Yeah.
And what I'd love to do, I'm gonna just for now call it, I would have written at the top, but I'm too short. I'm gonna call it the housing matrix. And I think this is a subcommittee essentially. So let's keep working through them and prioritizing, but I feel like a bunch of us are really excited about this and this could be something we could work through and bring back. But I don't wanna use our meeting time today to get too far into that. Yeah.
So this doesn't actually address what we were looking at,
Right.
which is how our current rental housing was created and maintained. And stay at 40.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
So how our current rental housing, so we've got the rental units below the muni. So that's
Yes.
one.
So
We've got
okay.
One's above the store.
the ones above the store,
Existing.
Tatesville Corner,
Kate's Hill. We've got
above the
the,
pub.
whatever you call them, the extensions of existing properties.
Yeah.
Village Square, right?
Village Square.
Village Square, yeah.
Well, Artisan Square too has rental properties?
Artisans.
Mm-hmm.
Is-
Artisans, so artisans is tricky in my mind because it's strata.
Yeah.
So each building is owned by one entity and it's like private ownership. They're like private condos that can be rented or not. So I'm hesitant to include them in.
But that's
I
valuable
love it.
in that they are relatively low cost for people to get into the housing market. Some of them are more reasonable than a house.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're existing rent in the sense like these
No.
townhouses.
Yeah.
They're rental.
Again,
Yeah.
What's the question again, Maureen, just before I
The
ramble
question,
off with verbal diarrhea here?
How our current rental housing was created and is maintained.
Well,
So, I mean, it's just flagging what they are. So distillery and pub, they should be added there, I think.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
yeah,
so.
sorry,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
all the same where you've got commercial enterprise on the bottom, including Artisan Square, which is supporting rentals on the top.
And then we could
And they're all
say
in the same chunk.
upcoming, because Grafton Lakes is in there, and I think,
The only difference is a couple of drivers for the pub were employee housing. That's only a little twist to it.
well,
But
I mean, I
you
would
wouldn't build them
say-
if the pub below was an economic.
So this is mixed use, that was private development, right? Village Square was mixed use, private development. The general store, whenever that was built, was a mixed use,
Motel,
private
yeah.
development, right?
What's what?
I think it was a motel.
A
That
motel?
was a motel.
That explains the architecture.
Yeah. And then,
I never thought about
I
that.
didn't
But-
either.
so
Wow.
this one, but below Muni Hall, Distillery Pub and Grafton, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, are a result of a municipal policy.
Yeah.
That essentially
Yeah.
forced the developer to make
Yeah.
So
them.
I
this
had
is
no
part of the
idea.
Kate's Hill
Yeah.
rezoning was essentially that they provide the.
But unfortunately, at the time, it had a 10-year timeline. So it was only affordable for a 10-year, and then it reverts to market, which is what it is
The
now.
other is the float homes.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, it's
And
very-
that's,
that comes under the heading
that's
of
interesting.
totally innovative, and it's almost a little bubble all of
It's
its
its own
own.
little bubble, an innovative
Yeah.
worker housing desperation.
Looking at all those individual projects we've talked about, an overall category that covers it is benign self-interest of the business, because and necessity to have that there.
Yeah.
So then it is, what's the lever that municipality can ease to make it more encouraging for that type of
Yeah.
activity to go on, because then the cost to council, cost to the community isn't high.
Mhm.
Private enterprise will do it if they're given the opportunity to cover the costs of that additional part of the building.
So it
I
must be a
agree.
trade for zoning, surely.
No, I agree, but that goes back to when that project comes onto us.
Mhm.
Council input to beginning, let's give it certainty, let's make the process go, so that people can then say, okay, I'm going to do this.
That's part of it, but we're deeply restrictive on allowing anything to happen. Deeply restrictive.
So I feel like that's a separate item. So do you, firstly, does that answer your question about how those existing rentals work? Because that was the question we were answering.
Yes, so what
Okay.
just to clarify, so what I'm hearing is it's a deal with the developer, that the developer gets tighter zoning or tighter
Density?
density, thank you, more density in return for building social,
Rental.
rental
Yeah,
housing.
Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna cross that one off. Don't worry, I have not forgotten what we've just talked about. And let's keep that in our pocket. I think we'll either get to it or we'll bring it back. So, I'm on 4F, common knowledge of impact factors, so land-based construction on capital. I think that's summed up in the matrix here, so I think that'll get taken care of. So I'm on the next page now. 4G, what has been working well was what has been the main detractor for housing availability. So I think this is probably what the crux of what we were getting at, and I feel like, do you feel that that might be addressed in this matrix? Like, once you've done this matrix and we've identified where the gaps are, what we want to encourage, does that then lead to the conversation of, okay, well, we want to fill this hole in the matrix, how do we do that? What are the tools, what are the incentives, what are the policies? Does that make sense with what we were talking about, or?
I personally could fold that into that, because
Yeah.
that's too many, to reduce the amount of subsections, which is kind of.
Yeah, which is what we're getting at, right? We're
Yeah.
trying to get this down to several actionable items. But I do feel like what we were kind of getting to was basically, how can we help? How can we, and there's gonna be a lot of different ways, and some of it's going to be, I like this taxpayer supported, all of that kind of stuff. But then there's also, how can we help and support private capital to create these units as well? So I think that may all come out of this housing matrix. Find out more about new provincially funded needs assessments. That's probably an easy action item, right? There's just we can just find out, maybe you can answer it right now.
They haven't announced the process for it, so
Okay.
that's just a matter of keeping our ears open.
Okay, great.
I think this whole thing about provincially funded with the equity or debt would be in the top 5, and we aren't gonna build anything, I shouldn't say anything, there's a couple of other areas, but basically most of our buildings are gonna come from provincially funded situations.
Yeah,
So
so-
to understand that provincially funded is private capital can't afford to build anything unless it's cross-subsidized with a commercial or it's condos.
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is true. This specifically was about that there is now, is it legislation that every municipality has to do a needs assessment and it's updated at a certain interval, yearly, 2 yearly,
But the
something like
ground
that?
rules for anything connected to how you get provincial funding, I think, is very important.
Yes, and
Whether
I
it be an
think,
assessment or what's available, or which door do you knock on to get it? It's not sending in applications. These days, you gotta go kick a door in.
yeah.
So in terms of needs assessment, BC Housing has done a needs assessment that is adequate for their purposes for Bowen Island. And the conclusion that they reached was that there is ample demonstrated need and they don't need to dig any more deeply.
Yay.
But what this is that ongoing data that can be compared year over year. So it's actually, we're ahead of the game in terms of having the needs assessment that's required for the province to respond to us.
So I think we're right, let's just keep that on our radar, and when it does come through, I think it will be a great thing for us as a committee to address and figure out how we're gonna achieve it.
These need assessments need to be refreshed. When's the next time it needs to be refreshed so it's current and always current? I mean, that's a drive.
It's a new program that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is introducing, and they're going to be requiring the needs assessments to be done. I believe it's every year, but I could be wrong on that. And the key piece that's different is that they're going to pay for them to be done.
Oh, I love that
Because-
part.
Yeah. they'll stipulate the data that they want to collect so that they're able to do community-to-community comparisons throughout the
Maybe
province.
when I'm going to set up a private consulting firm, I see opportunity here.
It's the only way they can you imagine if every municipality submits the information in a different format? It's impossible. So this just gives a template.
So again,
right across.
this is on our radar, we'll,
Yeah.
Move on.
yeah, we'll move on, we'll find out more when we get the information. So availability of trades constrained done to point diverse housing?
Sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
I think that rolls into our, when we talked about planning where all the
Yeah,
building is
that came
going, I
under-
think that's
Yeah,
kind
I
of a
think that's
subset
already,
of that.
yeah, okay, so we'll just cross that one off, that's already been addressed, because we know that trades and
It's all spelled wrong, so let's just get
that's
rid of it.
okay, we'll just get rid of it. So tools needed, number 5. Recommend instituting MRDT and send the money to Affordable Housing Reserve. This is on my radar as an overall, like, let's discuss it, let's keep it in the mix.
Please.
On my radar
I'm
is
like
a.
dumber than a door. What's MR?
Yeah, I have
Oh,
no
yeah,
idea.
good, no, good question.
That's a regional
Municipal.
Municipal and regional district
the
tax.
tax.
So it's a tax that a municipality can, my understanding, a municipality can choose to apply to short-term rentals.
It's provincially funded, MR?
It's provincial, so the province has changed some things, and everybody who rents out their B&B will be required to pay, is it PST?
The provincial and also
Got it
this.
on the big
this
screen
tax.
here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so as of October, is October I think?
October the 1st.
Yeah.
So this is another tax program over and above. It can be set at 2 or 3% of the cost of the B&B booking. And in the past, this has only been, you've only been able to use this to fund tourism-related initiatives. But the ministry has changed it, and you can now use this money to go into an affordable housing pod as an alternative.
So it was established essentially as a central thing where like all the hotels in Whistler would get taxed and it goes into prone Whistler as a destination.
The industry originally did this to fund promotions. Because please remember the times when business was bad and they pulled this money to sell Whistler. Now, the difficulty is this money to pool, as far as some people are concerned in the business, is now being grabbed by government because all of a sudden this is the new political hot button and they can take that money and they can put it towards
Is this the
housing.
same with the, what I would call the tax on condos? If you rent them out, or is this a
No,
separate
a
tax?
little bit different. It was originally a
So that was
hotel.
all
It was originally,
promotional for
yeah,
Whistler.
it funded the Vancouver Convention Centre.
Yeah.
This work didn't fund it, it went towards it. Anyway, now times have changed. Now the thing is on Bowen, you have very, very little what we call hard-roofed accommodation.
Right, I'm gonna stop you, Michael, because it
And-
is
and
very
I was
interesting.
going to say, I was going to suggest we
Yeah.
set this aside.
Yeah, so my
What?
thing is,
The pennies are not worth it.
What?
I disagree, no.
There's
I
not
think
a whole lot.
Is
Nope.
this the tax that Airbnb will collect
Yep.
for us?
Let's
Yes.
put it under, hang on.
300 Airbnbs on the island, come on.
I
let's
want
go.
a nice big heading called short-term rental, STR, and I think this goes under.
Number 8.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so number 8.
Yeah, put it down there.
So it goes down there, and I think that's, because that's also on my radar, I think that would be really important work for this committee to do, and let's just put it under that heading. I don't want to get into this or that, so,
The key thing to remember about this is we don't have it on Bowen.
Yeah,
at this
exactly.
point.
yeah, thank you. So 5B, research incentives for developers used in comparable communities. I think that could be an action item. Maybe we need to make like a future action item, because I feel like we've got a lot going, so,
I think you said at the beginning, we'll make a whole list.
We'll make a
of
whole
action
list,
items
okay.
At the end.
so that could just be either one person or a couple of people if they want to take that on.
I'll do that.
Maureen wants to take that on.
Sorry, let me just keep up here researching.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
So B, Maureen wants to take that on as an action item, okay? So take that out of our discussion. C, identify barriers to progress on housing. I think that'll be taken care of in the matrix.
Yeah, I think we covered that.
So I'm just gonna put
The
matrix.
door speaking again, what's LUB?
Oh,
Land
land
use bylaw.
Oh, okay.
Bylaw.
I got it, I'm sorry.
and OCP is official
I got that part.
community plan.
Plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and please stop anytime if there's jargon and stuff that you don't know.
Sorry. Number C is part of the matrix, you said?
Matrix, I'm just gonna say matrix, yeah.
Okay.
D, raise tax on holiday homeowners higher than residential worker homeowners. That's an interesting one. Can we put that on a parking lot? Or is, I know that's yours, Daniel, isn't it?
25% of our housing stock is holiday homes.
Yeah,
That strikes me as,
Do we know that exactly?
That's
that's what the
from the
survey
census.
says.
yeah, that's.
25% of our...
They're not
It's the
primary,
census
it's not, they're
Not
not primary
residents, then
residents.
that's a better description, but
Yeah. Okay, well, let's keep it in the mix and it'll be prioritized and let's
Yeah.
keep it, yeah, there. E, get required funding and resources for committee initiatives. So this is an interesting one because I'm on a couple of other committees and one of them, we have a budget to do stuff. So I just assumed that every committee has a budget to do stuff and it turns out that's not true.
That's true. That's
So-
correct. That's correct. It is not true.
There you go, I didn't know that. So I just sort of assumed, oh yeah, because I'm on other committees and other organizations and we have budgets and stuff. So I just thought, oh, we better get a budget together. So I feel like let's parking lot that one and let's see what we want to accomplish, and then should it require a budget, we can make a recommendation, but it should be an automatic assumption that we need money to do what we're doing. So let's just park that one for now. F, goal, identify what might be barriers to create affordable housing. I feel like that's the matrix.
Yeah, that's.
Fantastic. Look, the matrix is
We're
just
used
gonna
to
take
the
over.
matrix. It's
Amazing.
getting exciting.
Yeah, I'm
Lots
sorry.
of M's on those.
Yeah, exactly. Land bequeathment program. Actually, that's an interesting one.
It is.
Let's just circle it. It's part of the discussion.
you
And
could
I-
probably conclude that with the community housing programme, because I think that's how the Orcas Island one works. People
Leave land, bequeath land.
bequeath land,
Bequeath land.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that could be a part of, for Birch, could be part of a community lands trust, this conversation, that kind of whole thing, so, yeah.
Yeah, it needs paperwork change in our land use and at municipal level, accepting
Oh,
Yeah,
does it?
I get
I can
That's a
see
big
that
gift.
too, Daniel, especially if you can get people to donate the land in their will, and the municipality rezones it before the people die, that'd be a great plan. And then put that land into a land trust, because you get a bigger tax deduction for the donors. That would be, I can see that idea getting
Okay,
traction.
that's an interesting, so essentially kind of a policy program kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Okay, let's keep it in the,
It's a
circle it and keep it in
long-term
the
one.
mix.
It's a benefit
Yeah.
we won't really realise as a community, I believe, for 20, 30 years.
But then it's
But down the
huge.
line, when we're twice the size that we are now,
And land is
land will be
triple.
available.
Daniel, you wouldn't happen to know whether other municipalities have anything under that heading, would you?
Not.
Okay, all right.
No.
Okay,
Okay, so
move
let's
on.
keep it in the mix.
Yeah.
H, identify how existing zoning is an obstacle to achieve housing objectives.
Matrix.
I feel like that's gonna be somewhat covered in
Well,
the
that's with
matrix.
C, OCP and LUB.
Yeah, OCP, impediment to housing, mobile home density. Yeah, mobile homes, let's just keep mobile homes in, because I think the whole tiny home trailer mobile home thing is its own little discussion. So let's keep that in the
We separate out
mix.
too in our minds just between mobile homes and manufactured homes. I mean,
I know what the difference is, do
there's-
you?
Yeah, there's a huge difference between the two. I'm probably against mobile homes, but manufactured homes, I'm a cheerleader of that.
I mean, tiny homes?
Well,
No,
pre-manufactured.
Prefab.
Yeah, whatever.
Why don't
Yeah.
you go up to the golf course and look at what they're building out there? That stuff's coming in from Horizon and Kelowna.
Yeah.
That's, you know.
Yeah, so there is a difference, and maybe, actually, again, I think that's an important one. It could even just be like a little white paper or a little brochure to say, hey, here's what's allowed, what's not allowed, here's what the difference between those things, like, I think that could be really
This was
useful
all
to the
the rage
community.
back in the
and for
70s
discussion.
in Ontario.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of subdivisions built in manufacturers' homes, smaller lots, they came in on trailers, you park them on top, put a lot of landscaping on, they look like $1 million.
yeah, and I think part of that discussion, which is why
2 million,
trailer
actually.
park and all that stuff comes into it, is it's also about a different mode of ownership and rental, so it's potentially leasing a pad that's a lower cost than owning or renting, but so like I think there's more tied into the conversation, so I
In
think
many
that's.
cases, people rent the pad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's more of a long-term leasehold
Yeah.
situation. You own the house, you lease the land, it becomes more affordable. So I think there's a whole discussion around that, because that is one of the pieces of the puzzle, and I would love to actually see that in the matrix, is that that's missing, and whether we want to encourage that or not, leasehold land and all those kinds of things, and whether it's helpful. Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to hear from planning on mobile homes, manufactured homes, tiny homes.
Action item for Daniel.
And
Yeah.
what the actual restriction is that's in the OCP, because my understanding is there's nothing in the OCP that says you can't have manufactured homes.
No, there isn't anything.
I think there's something specific about
As
trailer
long as they don't
parks.
have wheels on them, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Put wheels on them,
Yeah.
then you're
So
deep dewey.
If Daniel could put
Yeah.
Put that down on
I,
paper.
exactly.
And
So
the,
we'll have-
and the
Yeah.
infrastructure too, because, I mean, fantastic, but the infrastructure plays its part as well
Yes.
as the road.
Oh, absolutely. So I think that's its own little thing. Let's action item for Daniel. He'll come back when he's ready, and I think that is its own discussion point, that whole bit. Okay, so Jay, review floor space and other incentives.
That's matrix.
Oh, you think, yeah, that fits into
Well,
matrix?
really, I mean, I
Yeah.
think we've got to one step at a time.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right. We would make sure on the matrix to include incentives, right?
Yeah,
Like
well,
what's.
Yeah, I mean, I guess almost what flags for me that is none of the sort of tools needed is this new, there's now rental-only zoning.
Yeah,
And that
Okay.
means like we could now, if we, did to make sure the infrastructure's there and stuff, we could rezone Snow Cove and say, well, this is what you get, but you also get this much rental zone, so that's like an
Okay.
incentive. You can say, well, gee, people, and just as an outright thing, it could be,
Well, it's dipping into the next one, and it's a
Mhm.
point I think Fritz brought up, but within the code, we perhaps should have a different set of rules so that the laneway house could be, I mean, a laneway house to me is almost more appropriate in the cove if the lot's big enough, or a townhouse in the cove is more appropriate, higher height in the cove is more appropriate.
yeah.
And they're all, to me, creative, part of that, and equally looking at it in the cove as away from the main street, it's higher on the main street, but it drops down to the 2.5 stories at the going into the forest part of the cove, because 60% of the cove's a park. I mean, it's bloody difficult to make a village in a park.
right. Okay, so I think, Jay, we've said is matrix, leasing of municipal lands. I'm not sure that we need further discussion on that. It's happening, it's in discussion.
Yeah.
It's something, it's tools that are there for us. L, help develop additional housing agreements. I feel like that's not, shouldn't be on our radar. I think that's something that staff's doing, all that stuff, but whether it's, let's just take that off for now. I think just, we should be aware of housing agreements, aware that they're happening, and just have.
Sorry, what, it's a housing agreement like between.
Oh, yeah. So, Jay.
So it's something that a municipality can do by bylaw, and typically it's part of a rezoning. And so essentially it's the way the municipality can put restrictions on housing units. So for example, the pub, as part of their rezoning, they got, additional, they could build more and they get lower parking and blah, blah, blah. And instead we said in return, housing agreement on the units that they have to provide, this many units that are rental housing that are for workers on Bowen, blah, blah, blah. So generally in zoning, you can't restrict that, but a housing agreement can restrict. It can say,
Excellent, I understand.
these are conditions, yeah.
And another example that I think is really important is Belterra.
Yeah.
So they have their ownership, strata condos, and there's a certain number, and I can't remember, is it 5 or something like that, that have these housing agreements. So they're stipulated how they remain permanently affordable.
Okay.
So that's an agreement for
Great.
those units. Yeah.
Thank you.
It is basically a covenant, is it not?
Yes.
Is that the-
Yeah, it could be a form of covenant.
It's a form of
Yeah,
covenant.
It's
Yeah.
a specific, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then M is create map of existing and proposed housing. I think that's on our
I
map.
think that was something.
That's our map. Yeah, you're right, we have a lot of M's, maps, matrix happening. Okay, so number 6, and I am watching the clock, so we're at a little more than 15 minutes to the hour. So, diverse housing. I feel like that's just kind of its own, and that will be addressed in the matrix, right? We're gonna address the diverse housing needs.
Yeah.
So I think so building ideas, considering duplex, triplets, rezonings, facilitate small subdivisions, identify potential forms. I think that's matrix. Let's just kind of loop that in, and if it turns out that we've missed something, we can always come back to it. Number 7 is engagement. Okay, well,
What was
Yeah.
6D? Just give me a couple
Sure.
more sentences, the intent.
identify potential
6D.
forms of development. Does anybody remember who put that one up? And again, you have to remember these were Post-its we all did and they got lumped together.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like each one was a distinct point, it was like these are all grouped together. So I feel like that one was probably similar to the other ones about we need duplexes, triplexes, more apartments, all that stuff. It was
At the risk
about,
of insulting somebody, I'm putting a line through it.
yeah, no, exactly. I think again, because these were all grouped, I think that's quite a repetitive one.
Yeah.
Like I say, I think that will all be addressed in the matrix if we can. We'll probably spend some time creating that top line, right, of all the different diverse types that we're gonna want to address. So engagement number 7. So this is
EOI.
EOI is an expression of interest.
Okay.
Yeah, so this says recommend putting out an expression of interest for lot 1, area 2 if rezoning concludes. That's like a very specific thing, and I'm
I
not
think
sure
we could-
that we
I
as a
think-
committee can be that.
No, I think that's,
Honed in.
can
It's
we
a neat
leave that to
idea.
the process we're working on, and that's
Yeah.
what will come out of what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's council's job, not our committee.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was a nice idea, and it's been thrown out there, but I
Yeah.
don't know that that's necessarily something we can.
It was a post-it on the board.
Yeah, and then this one, I think what this comes down to is EOI investigate industrial land. I think I put that one up, or certainly something similar to it. And mine was, and it goes back a bit to what we were talking about before, sort of essential infrastructure and sewer and water money and skilled trades, probably more in that discussion, is how do we, I would like it if we could think about how do we incentivize or how do we create more industrial land on Bowen. And anyway, so I'd like to keep it in the mix, if that's okay.
Yes.
We'll keep it in there.
The
so-
light, should we call it light industrial?
Yeah, can you change the word?
I think
Industrial,
industrial
it
or
sounds-
light industrial.
Yeah, I think that's,
Commercial.
the
Why
one,
doesn't Metro Vancouver call it like job space or something?
Job
If they go, they
space.
avoid
Yeah.
industrial.
the word
Oh, they
industrial, the
avoid
word
industrial.
industrial is a big stumbling block.
Okay, so I'm okay with that. So what's the,
I have to
Commercial.
look it up, but I want to say
Okay.
something like job. They're calling it something like, they did this whole industrial land review of their
okay, so
designation.
Metro Vancouver
Work
has a new term.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could come up
Metro
with a new
van.
term.
Yeah, live workspace would,
Well,
But
that's
it's
not what I'm
different. It's a
thinking though.
different
I'm
thing.
thinking, like, we need warehouse space for the tradespeople.
Yeah.
Tradespeople to
You
do
know,
light.
we need,
actually do industrial, light industrial.
yeah, so it's that kind of space, so not so much, live work for artisans or something, that's not what I'm thinking of. It's more like you think about the trades on the island, how are they being constrained? So number one is they probably don't have enough apprentices because they don't have enough housing for the apprentices and you can't attract them. And the other one is they're constrained because they don't have storage for things, so they're constantly having, like I had a plumber do some work at my place and he had to make like 2 or 3 trips to town for stuff. Because, and like that cost me a lot of money and took way more of his time. Whereas if we could have, for those trades, more warehousing for themselves, it means they could potentially be more efficient, get more done, all of that kind of stuff. So, Maureen.
It is job space that Vancouver
Job
is
space.
using, and I think that's a much,
Much-
it's much softer and it's
Yeah.
much more.
So settled
Okay.
for that, because
Yeah.
anyone who's just worked their way through industrial is a word we want to take off our vocabulary. It's
Yeah.
just not descriptive.
Yeah, and I don't want people thinking it's some sort of,
Right.
smelter or like,
Sawmill.
rendering plant.
Also
Yeah,
not
right.
wrong. Okay.
So,
What's the
let's
buzzword
keep it
now?
in the
Job space.
job space.
Job space.
Yeah, anyways, let's work with
So-
that. So it's on the list, job space. How do we encourage
Hallelujah.
that, create more? So C, engage with BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health.
We have that as an action item already for you.
I think that's
Allison.
for me and Allison. Let's go, and BC Housing, I
Oh,
think with
no,
my
sorry.
hat as the chair of this and as Birch, I think that's probably a safe action item for me, because I'll be engaging with them. So I don't think this as a committee or anybody else, unless you particularly want to be involved, let me know, but we'll take that off of the mix here. Understanding the role of government support for housing, how to maximize opportunities. I'm also gonna, unless anybody particularly wants to do some research or anything, I'm gonna put that also on my plate, because it's really more specific to a specific project. E, review all players affecting housing, understand the role they play, develop relationships. I'm wondering if that, again, I hate to throw it all in the matrix, but I think that might be the matrix. That might be who's
Yes.
involved in them, why are we missing it, why aren't they engaged in it? So I feel like that could be addressed in it. Okay, so let's call that matrix. And F, work out a productive relationship with Metro Vancouver Housing Corp. So is that somebody I should be reaching out to? Like
No, I'm not actually on the board,
Oh,
the
okay.
Housing Corporation.
Yeah.
So
Maureen.
me. They're kind of repositioning themselves.
Okay.
And they had a number of major projects that they have to get underway in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And those are now underway.
Okay.
They're putting together a 10-year plan, looking at all of the municipalities
Okay.
within Metro Vancouver at this point. So I'll just keep an eye on that.
I think
keep
it's,
talking.
yep, so Maureen's our liaison, and she'll keep us informed. So that doesn't have to, it can be off. And then I think number 8's its whole own subject, short-term rentals, STR. Okay, that's great. I think that was a great suggestion, Michael. We really weaned that down to
Yeah, I
a
think
few
it was-
manageable
It was the
things.
first step I think we had to take.
Oh, I agree. So we've only got about 10, 12 minutes left. So-
Well, I should have said ongoing.
I think there's actually not that many here. So what if are you able to like bring up on the screen a blank page? And then we could just because I mean, I could write them out, my writing's so messy.
So let me, Robin, could I just be clear about number 8?
Yes.
On what you meant, what you wanted?
So for short-term rental,
Yeah.
I think it's a whole subject that we as a committee could be looking at. We could be looking into what other communities are doing, how are they handling it, are they using this MRDT, whatever tax? Because so right now, I think Bowen and a lot of other municipalities, it's a complete gray area in terms of it's actually illegal based on land use. We know it's happening, nobody's enforcing anything, so it's this complete gray area, and then, you know, arguably, people are saying it's taking away from long-term housing stock. So it's just a whole thing that should be looked at, and if business licenses are brought in, they're specifically not addressing it, and please, you know, Maureen, Daniel, Michael, jump in.
Why are they not addressing it?
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, it's not addressed because it remains not allowed in our land use bylaw, so
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to get a business license if you
Ha,
had
yeah.
that
So-
Airbnb.
But people are doing it anyways.
But they're doing it anyway, so I think it would be great, wouldn't it be great if one of the things that we could do as a committee is kind of a report like the EDC did for business licensing, so we could do a report, a subcommittee could work on this, say, here's what other communities are doing, here's some best practices, here's how we think Bowen should deal with short-term rentals. And then that gets to go up to council and they can potentially make the changes needed to actually address them. What do you, Maureen?
I think it would be helpful again for Daniel, and you've got this information already, just to provide the committee with the current definitions
Yeah.
of permitted uses. This is a B&B, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
These are the conditions. This is a commercial guest house. This is perfectly fine.
Okay.
Blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then distinguish the permitted uses from those that aren't permitted.
So am I right, then I'm hearing that Airbnb, if people are doing that, or VRBO here on the island is not actually legal?
It would depend. So you can advertise on Airbnb, but what you're operating is what we would define as a bed and breakfast unit, and that is permitted. Or you could be operating what we would call a commercial guest accommodation, which is you're renting the whole unit out.
I'm
I
gonna
would think
interrupt
that's
because
not
we're down to
permitted.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think, Dan, it's,
Just
Maureen?
one quick clarification. It's really important to think in terms of a marketing platform versus the actual unit. So Airbnb is a marketing platform. It's
Okay.
not actually a type.
Got it.
Yeah, so I think action item, Daniel's gonna report back, and what I'd like to do is we'll get up here, I think it's just one big heading
Yeah.
that I'd like to prioritize for us.
And then we can clean it up next time, and it does need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Stefan, I'm sorry, you're totally multitasking here. I was having Steph go up, so just to go back, the ones that I have circled, that we were still going to keep in the mix and prioritize, are survey, some kind of, survey of the rental housing stock, and why I wanted to keep this on is I'd really like to see, I would like to understand the employee needs, like summer house, like what's not being filled right now. So
Yeah.
like, and that would, again, that could probably be a fairly quick action item for maybe a few of us to take on, but it's like, currently for the employers, how many of their employees don't really have proper housing now? How many extra employees do they have in the summer that need to be housed? Like, what are the housing needs? What's a snapshot of it happening right now? And maybe that will be addressed in the housing needs assessment, but we don't really know when that's gonna happen and we don't know how soon. So I feel like maybe there's a way that we could do a less formal, so anyways, that's just what's on
EDC
my.
has a breakfast coming up soon.
Yeah.
That sort of questionnaire perhaps could be put out and
Yeah,
returned.
so
We'll give you a snapshot.
So that's what's on my, so that's where I get was survey, sort of gathering information in the community. The next one that I have circled was identify gaps and needs.
Sorry, I just missed that first part.
No, that's
Are you
okay.
seeing that on there? Yeah, I just.
No, so not action items.
Oh.
Sorry, that's my fault.
Okay.
Could we start a blank document up there?
Yes.
And the number one would be survey, I'm just gonna call it that for now. And then number two will be, now, I had number three on our list was identify gaps and needs. Is that the matrix? I'm wondering, so key takeaways from the survey, market needs segment, ability to live work.
I'd see that more as an action plan.
Do you think that okay, that's more of a result of the matrix and everything? Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's leave that one for now, I'm not gonna put that on. The next,
Sorry, I interrupted.
no, that's okay, jump in. I'm just trying to look at all of my circles that I had on here. Well, so this was one we kept on, a clear process for developers. That was one that,
Yes.
yeah, so let's type that one up as clear process.
Just clear process.
Yeah,
We don't-
and again, this isn't like a commitment, this is just
No.
what I'm just trying to pull these out, and then we can maybe in the next, 5 or 6 minutes, see if we can prioritize them. Well, first I should check in. So we're meant to wrap up at 11. Does anybody have to leave hard at 11, or do we want to take an extra 5 or 10 minutes? And
If you have 5 to 10 minutes, I'm good.
is that okay? Do we want to just not, okay, so I won't rush this way. Is that okay for you, Stan?
Yeah.
So we'll just see if we can go an extra 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, thanks everyone. So that was another one. I think, well, the housing matrix, let's call that. That's a nice big heading that we've got lots of stuff to do under there. And the next one is short-term rentals. And then I'd like to put up, because I do think we just talked about it. Oh yeah, so land bequeathment.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is, for lack of a better word, can I call it trailer house or trailer park or mobile homes, that kind of thing? Like, it's kind of its own thing, like with the whole idea of leasehold and all of that stuff. And so I know Daniel has an action item to report back to us, but as a group, it's a title, an item for us to address. And, oh, job space, let's call it that, job space zoning, shall we? Is that
I
good
gotta get used to
thing?
that,
And
but yeah.
maybe put in brackets light industrial, so we don't all forget what that means.
Not industrial.
Well, like
No.
light industrial, just put light industrial, and then
Yeah.
we'll at least, just to jog our memories of what that means if people forget what job space means. Yeah, so that's kind of, so we have 8, okay, that's not too bad. Yes, please.
I had some others, I had to cut the map of the infrastructure and applicable lands.
I think that's an action item.
We're already in the action item.
Yeah, so we've got 2
What is
lists
this is a
going here.
non-action list?
No.
This is then what didn't make the action list.
Okay, so let's review. So when we
Oh,
went
sorry.
over this at Michael's suggestion, which I think is great, some of these were like actions. So like Daniel's gonna just do that and report back to us. So he's just
Like
gonna
pretty
do it.
much, yeah.
Steph's gonna do stuff. Allison and I are gonna go talk to a few people and report back. So it's not something that we as a committee are gonna take on as our action, like our to-do items over the coming months. They're just little action items that we're gonna get done and report back. This is our work plan. This is what we as a committee are gonna hopefully be working on. We're gonna create our 1-year work plan out of this. So we wanna take these 8 top things, we wanna put them into, I don't think we'll have time to fill this in today, but we're gonna take these. I think we should, probably what we can do in this time is prioritize them and say, okay, which ones, because I don't think we're gonna be able to tackle all 8 to start with, so let's pick 3 or 4.
Can I
Yeah.
stick perhaps one in those, I don't know if it's been missed or pushed elsewhere.
Yeah.
I want to change the wording a little bit. We've talked about RDT, we've talked of, and Council have created an affordable housing reserve.
Yeah.
How are we going to, as a committee, encourage the island economy to put money into that reserve as a continuous drip feed so that there is always a capital in there so that council could say, oh, here's 5% towards the cost of someone helping this project get started. And, you know, because if there's
I
money
think-
put in,
Could we put, so Steph, could we put a 9, and could we put, because it's similar to your idea, I like your thinking money. Like, I wanna think money, like, so it's like, how do we get money to the reserve fund? How do we tax
Yeah.
these empty summer homes? So that's what you're thinking, is you're like, what financial tools can we
Incentives.
use? Financial, not even incentives, like financial, yeah, so financial tools to go towards affordable housing, because that's
Yeah.
really the couple of things that you're talking about, I think it's valuable. So does that work for you?
Yep.
Yeah, because I think there's a few good ideas in that, so I wouldn't want to just call one out,
Yeah,
I think
it's-
it's a discussion.
Because I
Okay,
think, yeah, can I just,
Yeah.
I think Robin, what you're building towards essentially is the idea that the committee would research financial tools and then bring a report to council with recommendations. So we're not just
Exactly.
at this meeting saying, we recommend council, blah, blah, blah off the bat, but the goal is, this is the work plan priority, come up with a report that's researched and defensible, that goes to council and says, you should be doing,
Yeah.
recommend you do this.
yeah, exactly. So that's the idea, so we'll,
Robin?
yeah,
Can you add in survey of employee housing need, because that, you were talking about.
yeah, that was mine, I wouldn't, yeah. And I'd like to leave it kind of open, but yeah, that's what I was talking about. And I think that will lead into the housing needs assessment, although, but why I want to leave it in there is, I'm concerned that the housing need assessment, we don't know what that's going to look like, it's going to be standardized for every community.
Right.
Is it going to be enough information for what we think Bowen Island needs? Do you know what I mean? So I
Is
want to
there
make
a-
sure it doesn't get lost.
Sorry,
Steve,
does
go
the
ahead.
province put out a blueprint for what one of the taters is supposed to look like? Like just a blank?
That's what we're waiting
Yeah.
on, that's
Yeah.
what we're waiting on.
Like I've done as a recent grad or whatever, I worked on the research parts of housing needs assessment, and there's like a best practice manual, I'm sure I can dig up. But largely what they would do is they look at the census data, they look at core housing need, they look at, you know, current dwellings, kind of the sense, and they generate, and from that you'd say, okay, gee, it looks like we need this many units.
Yeah.
How much, you know, and then they sort of incorporated generally, it's like interviews and stuff, so there's qualitative and quantitative component of it to identify needs, but so I don't know this specific one, but I would imagine they would build on what the
They're
past
gonna
one
pay
is.
somebody to do that for us.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I think so. Well, and it's
Thanks,
good.
that's helpful, Dan.
And it's going to be from this to this.
Yeah.
It will never ever be, we need 15 of these and 21 of these. It's
No.
going to be.
Yeah.
So where I wanted to, anyways, and why I want to keep it in there, it's something
Yeah.
I'm passionate about is, for example, I doubt that it will tell us how many summer staff do we really need on Bowen. So if there's an innovative way to build housing for summer staff that's different from permanent, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of information I think is useful for Bowen. And that I don't think will come out of a standardized housing
Yeah.
assessment. So that's what I want. It's information that's Bowen specific. So I'm excited about it. So the next one, identifying oh.
I don't have to go to the washroom, I just might have to.
I
I already did
yeah.
that. I think if Daniel somehow knows what these dudes are talking about, or Maureen's got somebody that she knows, if they're gonna get the form, why don't we volunteer to be the experimental thing or something? You gotta get first in line, because if you're gonna have independent people do this, they're gonna get all booked up. And we wanna be on the front of the bus and not the back of the bus, so I would just suggest if somebody from the Brain Trust over here knows somebody, you're bringing this out, you wanna experiment with the community, and we'll be the guinea pigs.
I sent a message to the ministry, so we'll see.
You're on it already? There you go.
Yeah.
My hand's
Okay,
down, I'm
there we
sorry.
go. Okay, so that's one of our, for me, it's a priority. Identifying gaps and needs. I feel like, is that the housing
That's the
matrix?
housing matrix.
Yeah, let's combine
But
those
is the
two.
housing matrix not on the
It's-
action list?
It is, it's full.
Well, no, I don't think it's on an action list yet, because it's gonna be part of our work plan. Like, it's a big one. Like, that's gonna be a really big one. And whether we decide to collectively work on it as a group, or whether there's a small subcommittee that works on it, let's figure that out. Clear process, what's that?
Clear
That's
process.
the
The
process.
developer, developer's clear process, okay. In my, okay.
I think for all people, it's not just
Yeah,
the
yeah.
private developers.
Oh, yeah.
It's for
And let's face it,
everything.
because I'm Bowen, it's also small individual
Yeah.
people doing these things, it's
Yeah.
not the big experienced developers.
Yeah.
We've got the housing matrix, which is a big one, short-term rental in my mind, that's a big one. Land bequeathment, I think is really
Can you
interesting.
spell that? I can't, it's what?
We can look it up, don't worry
Okay,
about it.
that's
We know what you mean.
The group
Um,
is spelled right.
And then the sort of mobile home prefab, we've got the job space zoning, and we've got financials. I'm so excited about all of them, this is the hard part, right, when you get into these implementation, like our work plan. So I'm wondering, what do people think? If we've got only 5 or 10 minutes, do we want to take a stab at trying to prioritize them? Do we want to, or do we, is this enough for today?
No.
This is enough for today, let's absorb this.
No, because as the information comes out, I think
Yeah,
this will naturally.
okay.
Thank you, Robert. I think that will naturally. come
Yeah,
to-
okay, good. So we won't push further.
I just want to make sure Roger has a chance to say something.
Yeah, it's quiet.
Absorbing.
Okay.
It all comes in.
Yeah, okay. So I think this is great. Thank you so much, everybody. So we've got, I think, 8 fairly clear priorities for what we want to accomplish as a group. I think we've got a lot of action items. Maybe that's what we should do. If you can bring up the action items, that would be great.
Could I just ask,
Yeah.
just on the other page, could we just add in some clarification on number 8? We're not going to remember what that means.
Right, financial
So it's-
tools, so,
It's to feed the Affordable
Yeah.
Housing Reserve
so
Fund.
feed affordable housing reserve, empty house tax, something like, you know,
To feed,
That's-
just to do
as
to
examples,
feed the affordable housing.
okay.
I think we know what, I
Is it
think Daniel
fun?
mentioned.
And
it.
Daniel, just say, ask Daniel, because Daniel's not gonna forget. He's got a couple of good strong ideas. So, yeah, so I think that's great, we'll take that away, we've got lots of reading, we've got action items, which if we can bring those up, make sure we aren't too overwhelmed with action items.
You will be.
Yeah, okay,
And there's this program's funky, I'll make them more,
okay.
sorry.
So we'll bring up,
Hold on.
no, that's
I
okay.
have to transfer it to this computer,
shoot,
so,
okay.
no, it's okay, I'm doing it.
So, I think
There.
I think it's fair to say we're not all gonna get these done in the next month. So I think like, pick 1 or 2, tackle them, report back next meeting, and then I think we touch base, we look at our priorities, see if we can develop a work plan, see if subcommittees emerge. or whether it makes sense to, like the matrix, I don't know, whether that's just something we might collectively work on together in a working session. Whether we need a separate, like that's another thing that came up, do we need a separate working session? That's like a half-day workshop somewhere to like go through that. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff we can maybe discuss at next meeting.
Does anybody else want an action item?
I think a big part of the matrix, going back to that, Ron, if I can, is segmenting the market. I mean, housing is not housing is not housing. There's
Yeah.
probably, we already talked this morning about 20 different types, I'm sure, if you add them all up. And each one is unique and it's got a unique set of challenges, if we can put it
Yeah.
that way. So I think a big part of the matrix is the line across the top is the market segmentation
Yeah,
part.
It's
You
gonna
know,
be
so
really
housing's not
important.
housing.
yeah.
Could we, because they would develop a common language, so that it would actually be very helpful.
Yeah.
Because some terms are just too big, housing is
Oh,
just
yeah.
too generic. So we'll break it down, as Steve mentioned, and then we can agree, yeah, this is what we mean by this.
Yeah.
Because it's
And-
like when you see OCP or LUB,
Yeah,
I mean, it's
Yeah.
such a lot, and that would be very helpful, Robin.
yeah, and we're not reinventing the wheel here, right?
No,
Like this
please.
there is standard terms out there is things, and then I think what we need to do is like Bowenize it. We need to like make it, customize it for ourselves.
Not a washroom break again. I'd be happy to take a first stab at it, if I can get some
Yeah.
help from Daniel, because some of this extension thing, I don't mind doing a first
Okay,
stab
first go
at
at
it.
the
and get
segmentation.
some
Okay, so
community input, at least we can put a draft out, but I'll do it from the point of view of, never mind the side part of the matrix, let's get the thing across the top. What are the various kinds of housing that we're talking about?
Okay, so great, and then we'll allocate a chunk of our meeting time next, because I feel like that's going to inform so much as well, if we can get that work done. So
as
maybe
Daniel's
let's,
doing nothing on Sunday and Monday, we'll keep him busy.
so we'll
Back on
maybe
the island
put a chunk of
Tuesday.
time into the next meeting to work on that matrix, maybe as a group, see where we can get to. And then we'll go through the action items. I won't
I'll
read them
fix
out
this.
now. Yeah, I won't read them out now, because we're out of time, but thank you, everybody. Any last thoughts?
Just, I'm not offended if you don't change it, okay, but as I said, I can't make the next meeting the morning of
yeah.
the second,
Okay,
and I'm not offended. I am totally free on the first, I could do the afternoon of the second, but I'm
Okay, so-
absolutely in jail on the morning of the second.
Group's
But if
on
everybody else can make it,
so,
I'm okay.
Listen, and I'm tired of bailing this guy out, so could we just...
The agenda says it's November 9th is the next.
Oh,
Oh,
That's what this printed one is.
that could be.
I'm not sure what it
so I
is.
think
in
it's
my
supposed to be the
Oh, yeah.
7th, but the 9th is the EDC meeting.
calendar. Okay. Oh, maybe
No,
that's why.
no.
no, the 9th is the...
Everything's getting changed.
Oh, everything's
No, what
changing.
what day
Yeah.
is that, you say?
Well, I'm saying like this says the 9th,
Of
November
what?
9th?
November 9th.
Oh,
It
hold on.
says 9th because, why?
Friday, November the 9th.
Because the inaugural is the night before the first.
Is that why?
Part of it, yeah, I don't know.
So
So,
when,
and
Oh,
everybody
you're right,
wants,
but in my calendar it's the 2nd on my calendar.
yeah, it should be is in my calendar is the 2nd,
Okay.
or maybe,
Yeah.
So,
November the 2nd,
but we want to change it.
And Steve is not available, so.
make it the
and
afternoon.
again, I'm not offended if you go without me.
No, but I think you're gonna be doing a pivotal thing and we'd like to talk about it. Is the afternoon a
How's the first? Does the
possibility?
first work for people, or Thursday's a bad day?
We're all fine. I
Sorry,
can't do
did you-
Thursdays at all.
Did you say the 9th was bad, Maureen? Is the,
No, the 9th is fine.
why do we think that was channeling the spirit of
And is the
excellent
EDC
days?
not meeting on the 9th? Because that's the
No.
second Friday.
Snapco
Okay,
working
they're not.
group is, I've got down.
They're meeting on the 16th,
Okay,
sorry.
no, that's okay.
It should
So
be
give
in
us,
the
give us this one again. So what are you deciding? I don't mind if it's Friday, but,
The 9th,
yeah.
9:30?
So, any objections?
No, Fridays.
Okay,
Hold on. Let's have this.
Okay, you should.
That gives us another week.
Ah, there you go.
so we'll get everything done, no problem.
And is everybody okay with a 2-hour meeting? Is that suitable? And again, I'd rather err on the larger side and the time and finish
I'm
early.
always mentally 2 hours. in.
Yeah, so if we can allow 2 hours, because we're over now, like we're at over our hour and a half that we were allocated. So let's do 2 hours, and if we finish early, great. And
Can I put one little one afterwards? Is can we have a feedback to the community in some way so that they know something's happening? Because it is a hot button for people. You know, people who are in housing crisis do want to know that some change is happening, and it's not just being researched and reviewed and going on the shelf again in the
Can we
municipality.
put that in with engagement? We did have engagement in there.
But I'm just sort of thinking after one of these meetings, just a little paragraph of just a little something of, we've got this, we've got an action plan, we're looking at future revenue, future land, just something just as a little push,
So what's the,
maybe quarterly,
so
but
for
something.
example, as me as the chair, can I put out a little Facebook update that says, hey, the Housing Advisory Committee met and here's a link to the minutes in the video, like is that kind of what you're getting at? Just to remind people we're here and we're doing stuff?
As the chair, you can do that.
I can do
go
that?
over the communications policy
Yeah.
and try to be really.
Why don't we do
thorough.
that? I don't necessarily want to do it today because I
No,
think
no.
we're still a little fuzzy, but I think maybe
We
after,
can provide a link to the.
yeah, we can provide a link to the video and all of that stuff. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I'm happy to do that as chair, like just to kind of put it out there into the world and remind people that we're doing stuff.
If we have the map as well, that would be
The
something.
map will be cool, the matrix will be
Yeah.
cool, you know, like once we actually have some stuff, the visuals. Yeah, but no, I'm
Yeah.
agreed. So we'll just kind of put that, maybe could we put an action item for me, just with community update, something like that. And it's just, doesn't have to happen every meeting, but if it's on there, it'll just remind me that it should be done. Great idea.
You going to add that we're a little fuzzy?
I'm not gonna put it out today, I'm just putting it on the action items so we remember for next time and kind of carry it
No,
forward.
right.
It might just be a standing one for me to remember, but I don't think I'm gonna update after today's meeting necessarily, because I think we're still a work in progress here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you receive that invite, Steve? You guys are, anyone?
Yes,
on
just
that?
got it, and I think you should have my reply.
Okay, so we're meeting next on Friday the 9th. Same time, same place, and thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate the, well, except for like 2 people, all of us are here volunteers. We're volunteering our time and everything, so I really appreciate your time and effort in this, and I feel like we're a enthusiastic group. And I'm really pleased with the skill set and the energy that we've got going. So.
Thank you.
Thank
Robin.
you. Thank you, Robin.
And as chair for a moment, I'd like to say it was a great decision.
Thank you, Michael. All right, so 11:11 officially adjourned. Thank you.
Tell me again, how
I
many
dropped you a little.
units
I did
are
see
there
that.
in
Well,
below the